In the desolate silence of an abandoned ranch, where despair lingered like a ghost, a starving Mustang lay broken on the unforgiving earth, his spirit crushed, his body barely recognizable beneath layers of dust and neglect. Once a symbol of freedom and strength, he had been discarded like trash, left to die alone in the cold. But then, out of nowhere, a stranger appeared, a beacon of hope in the darkness. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. An act of kindness so profound would reignite not only the Mustang's will to live, but also challenge everything we thought we knew about resilience, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. This tale will remind you that even in our darkest moments, light can still shine through, if someone is brave enough to bring it. It's a story of courage, hope, and the indomitable will to rise again. Through the stranger's unwavering dedication and the Mustang's fierce determination, we are reminded that no life is too far gone to be saved, and sometimes the smallest acts of love create the biggest miracles. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more inspiring tales of courage, connection, and the wonders of a natural world. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the incredible journey of this Mustang, a testament to the power of hope and second chances. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment of redemption that changed everything? Let us know in the comments below. The first rays of dawn stretched across the sky, painting the world in hues of gold and orange. A biting wind rustled through the dry grass, carrying the scent of dust and something far worse, the smell of neglect, of suffering. In a deserted field, hidden behind an old, rusting barn, a Mustang lay motionless on the ground. His once magnificent coat, a deep chestnut brown, was now dull and caked with dirt and dried blood. His thick black mane was tangled, and his ribs jutted out sharply, a painful reminder of how long he had gone without food. He tried to lift his head, but his body refused to obey. The pain was too much. His dark, intelligent eyes, once filled with wild defiance, now held only exhaustion. Nearby, an old wooden gate hung loosely on its hinges, leading to an empty paddock. There was no hay, no water trough, nothing but dust and neglect. This place had once been home, but now it was a graveyard of broken promises. The Mustang hadn't always been this weak. His owner, a cruel rancher named Owen Carter, had once paraded him around, bragging about his strength, his speed. But when the horse refused to be broken, when he fought back against the harsh training and brutal whips, Owen's patience turned to rage. The beatings started slowly, a harsh tug of the reins, a whip across the flank. But as the Mustang's spirit refused to bend, the punishments grew crueler. No food, no water, no shelter from the scorching sun or freezing nights. Until one day, Owen made his final decision. He dragged the Mustang out behind the barn, tied him to a post, and beat him one last time. When the Mustang collapsed, too weak to stand, Owen cut the rope and walked away. "A waste of time," he muttered, leaving the Mustang to die alone. Miles away, a battered old pickup truck rumbled down a dirt road. Inside, Jake Lawson, a horse rescue activist, gripped the steering wheel tightly, his sharp eyes scanning the landscape. His work was never easy, saving mistreated horses, tracking down abuse cases, negotiating with people who didn't care. It was exhausting, but he never gave up, not after what he had seen, not after what had been done to horses like this Mustang. A call had come the night before, a tip-off about a horse abandoned behind an old ranch. The person hadn't left their name, just an address. Jake had seen too many of these cases to ignore it. As he approached the property, his gut twisted with unease. The place was nearly deserted, just an old farmhouse, a few rusting fences, and a barn that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Then, as he turned the corner, his chest tightened. There, lying in the dirt, was the Mustang. Jake slammed the truck in a park, throwing open the door. One look, and he knew this horse was barely alive. He rushed forward, his boots kicking up dust as he knelt beside the animal. "Hey, buddy," he said softly, his voice calm despite the worry gnawing at his chest. The Mustang's ears flicked slightly, a faint response. Jake's hands hovered over the horse's skeletal body, noticing every wound, every sign of neglect. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. This wasn't just abandonment. This was cruelty. His mind raced. Could he even move the horse? Was there still time? Then the Mustang took a slow, shuddering breath. He was still fighting, and Jake wasn't about to let him lose. The Mustang's shallow breaths came in uneven bursts, his sides barely rising and falling. He tried to move, to shift his weight, but his legs refused to cooperate. His body was shutting down. Jake knelt beside him, pressing a firm hand against the Mustang's trembling neck. His skin was hot, his heartbeat weak. He was dangerously dehydrated. "This isn't good," Jake murmured. He glanced toward his truck, parked a few feet away, the old trailer hitched to the back. Moving a horse in this condition was risky, but leaving him here was a death sentence. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small bottle of water. It wasn't much, but it was something. Carefully, he poured a trickle onto the Mustang's dry lips. At first, there was no reaction. Then the horse's nostrils flared slightly, his lips parting just enough to take in a few drops. "That's it, boy," Jake whispered. "Come on, stay with me." The Mustang's ears flicked weakly, barely registering the sound of Jake's voice. Jake exhaled, his mind racing through options. If he called animal control, they'd likely put the horse down rather than attempt a difficult rescue. If he called a vet, it could take hours to get someone out here, and the Mustang didn't have hours. He had to act now. Steeling himself, Jake stood and walked back to the truck, yanking open the trailer doors. He grabbed a thick rope and a set of blankets before hurrying back to the horse. "This is going to be rough," he muttered, kneeling beside the Mustang again. Jake gently slid the blanket under the horse's front legs, trying not to cause more pain. He wrapped the rope around the Mustang's torso, creating a makeshift harness. The horse barely reacted. He was too weak to fight. Jake took a deep breath, bracing himself. "All right, big guy," he said, gripping the rope. "Let's get you out of here." With a sharp tug, he pulled, using all his strength. The Mustang let out a low distressed sound, his body shifting slightly in the dirt. "Come on, you can do this," Jake encouraged, sweat already forming on his brow. He pulled again, harder this time. The Mustang's legs kicked out weakly, his breath hitching in discomfort. Jake knew he was running out of time. He dug his boots into the dirt, planted his feet, and with one last effort, he heaved the Mustang forward. The horse lurched, his body dragging a few feet toward the trailer. His breathing was ragged, but he was moving. Jake didn't stop. He pulled again, then again, each time the Mustang inched closer to safety. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the edge of the trailer. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead, breathing heavily. The hardest part was over. Now he just had to get him inside. He climbed into the trailer and looped the rope around a support beam, using leverage to pull the Mustang up the last few feet. The horse groaned, his muscles trembling from the effort, but he didn't collapse. With one final pull, he was inside. Jake stumbled back, chest heaving. He crouched beside the Mustang, placing a reassuring hand on his neck. "You did it," he whispered. The Mustang let out a weak exhale, his eyes fluttering shut. Jake wasn't sure if he was asleep or unconscious, but either way, he had him now. Stepping out of the trailer, he slammed the door shut, securing the lock. Then, without wasting another second, he jumped into the truck and hit the gas. There was still a long road ahead, but one thing was clear. This horse wasn't going to die here. The old pickup truck roared down the dirt road, dust swirling in thick clouds behind it. Jake kept one hand on the wheel, the other gripping his phone tightly as he dialed. "Come on, pick up," he muttered under his breath. The ringing seemed to stretch forever before a woman's voice finally answered. "Dr. Avery Whitman." "Avery, it's Jake." He didn't waste time. "I've got a critical case. Mustang, severely malnourished, dehydrated, covered in wounds. I barely got him into the trailer. He's too weak to stand." A sharp intake of breath. "How long has he been down?" "No idea, but he was left to die." Jake's jaw clenched, remembering the lifeless look in the horse's eyes when he found him. "I'm about 20 minutes out. Think you can get set up?" "I'll be ready," she said without hesitation. "Drive safe." Jake tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pressed the accelerator. Glancing at the side mirror, he saw the Mustang's body sprawled inside the trailer. His breathing was uneven, but he was still alive, and that had to count for something. The tires skidded slightly as Jake pulled into Whitman Equine Rescue, a modest but well-equipped ranch dedicated to saving neglected and abused horses. He barely had the truck in park before Dr. Avery Whitman came running out, already dressed in her vet gear. She was sharp, efficient, and as passionate about horses as Jake was. The moment she saw the condition of the Mustang, her face darkened. "Damn it, Jake," she exhaled. "Let's get him out." Jake flung open the trailer doors while Avery's assistant rushed over with supplies. The Mustang didn't move. Jake jumped in beside him, crouching low. "Come on, buddy, we made it this far." He pressed a hand to the Mustang's neck. The heartbeat was slow but there. Avery climbed into the trailer, her hands already checking for injuries. "He's critical, but we might have a chance." She looked at Jake. "Think we can get him standing?" Jake studied the Mustang's frail body, then nodded. "We have to try." With ropes secured under his torso and a team of people lifting, they heaved the Mustang to his feet. He swayed dangerously. Jake held his head steady, whispering to him, "Easy, boy, easy." His legs wobbled, but didn't buckle. Avery was already hooking up 4 fluids. "We need to get his hydration stabilized. He's running on fumes." Jake didn't move from the horse's side. "He's a fighter." Avery gave him a sideways glance. "Let's hope you're right." The Mustang closed his eyes, leaning into Jake's touch. For the first time since Jake found him, he didn't look like he was waiting to die. The Mustang stood unsteadily in the treatment stall, his legs trembling beneath his frail body. His chestnut coat, once sleek and strong, now hung loosely over his bones, a cruel reminder of how close he had come to death. Jake kept a firm but gentle hand on his neck, feeling the horse's labored breaths beneath his palm. Avery worked quickly, adjusting the forebag that dripped life-saving fluids into the Mustang's bloodstream. "His hydration levels are dangerously low," she murmured. "We need to get him stronger before he can eat anything solid." Jake nodded, but his jaw was tight with frustration. "How long do you think he's been like this?" Avery glanced at the horse's wounds, tracing old scars along his flank. "Weeks, maybe longer. Starvation, dehydration, untreated injuries. He's been through hell." She turned to Jake, her blue eyes sharp with something unspoken. Jake sighed. "I already know what you're going to say. You think his owner did this." Jake's fingers twitched against the Mustang's mane. He had seen too many cases like this, and the signs were always the same. Someone had given up on this horse, brutalized him, then thrown him away like garbage. "He didn't get here on his own," Jake said, voice tight. "Someone wanted him dead." Avery exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "If you find out who did this..." The Mustang shifted his weight, nearly giving out beneath him. Jake caught him, steadying him with both hands. "Easy, boy." The horse didn't fight him this time. That was progress. Hours passed. The Mustang was still weak, but he was standing on his own now, his ears flicking toward every sound. Jake watched from the other side of the stall, arms crossed. "He's watching you," Avery noted. Jake smirked slightly. "Yeah, probably trying to figure out if I'm just another bad guy." Avery sat down, her clipboard. "Are you going to keep him?" Jake hesitated. He had rescued a lot of horses, but this one felt different. Maybe it was the way the Mustang had fought to survive. Maybe it was the fact that someone had tried to break him, and he had refused to give in. Or maybe it was because Jake saw something of himself in the horse, worn down, beaten by life, but still standing. He exhaled. "I don't know yet." Avery gave him a knowing look. "You do." Jake didn't answer, because deep down he already knew the truth. This horse wasn't just another rescue. He was meant to be here. The Mustang's breathing had steadied, his legs no longer trembling as badly as before. He still wasn't strong, but he was standing on his own, and that was something. Jake leaned against the wooden stall, arms crossed, watching the horse with careful eyes. He had seen too many rescues go wrong, horses so traumatized they never trusted again, never fully recovered. But something about this one was different. He wasn't broken, wounded, yes, starved, abused, and thrown away like trash, but not broken. Avery walked up beside him, clipboard in hand. His vitals are improving. It's slow, but it's happening. Jake gave a slight nod. That's good. He's watching you again. Jake turned his head, locking eyes with the Mustang. The horse's gaze was cautious, not fully trusting, but curious. That curiosity was what made Jake hopeful. It meant there was still something left inside him that hadn't been destroyed. You need to start working with him, Avery said. Jake's jaw tensed. He knew she was right, but pushing too soon could do more damage than good. Not yet, he murmured. He needs to know he's safe first. Avery smirked. You say that, but I know you. You've already decided he's yours. Jake shot her a look. I haven't decided anything. She laughed. Sure, keep telling yourself that. She walked away, leaving Jake alone with the Mustang. The horse's ears flicked forward slightly, his body language not as rigid as before. Jake took a slow step forward, careful not to startle him. The Mustang's muscles tensed, his nostrils flaring. Jake stopped, waiting, giving him a choice. Seconds passed. Then, ever so slightly, the Mustang relaxed. It was just a fraction of a change, but Jake noticed. Good boy, he murmured, keeping his voice low and steady. He took another step. This time a Mustang didn't move away. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next day, Jake was up before dawn, standing at the edge of the Mustang's paddock. He had decided to give the horse space, but stay nearby, letting him get used to having a human around without pressure. But something was different this morning. The Mustang wasn't pressed against the farthest corner of the paddock like before. He was closer, watching Jake. Jake let out a slow breath. Progress. He grabbed a small bucket of water and walked to the fence, setting it down before backing away. The Mustang eyed him cautiously, his ears twitching. Then, after a long moment, he took a step forward. Jake didn't move, didn't speak. He just let the Mustang decide. Slowly, the horse lowered his head and took a few tentative sips. Jake smirked. They were getting somewhere. Later that afternoon, Avery leaned on the fence, watching as Jake stood in the paddock, arms at his sides, waiting. The Mustang was just a few feet away, not as afraid as before, but still hesitant. Avery raised an eyebrow. Are we taking bets on when he lets you touch him? Jake smirked, but didn't take his eyes off the horse. I don't rush things. She snorted. Yeah, I've noticed. He ignored her, extending his hand slightly, palm open. The Mustang's ears flicked back, his muscles tightened. Then a slow step. Jake held his breath. Another step. Then the Mustang's nose brushed against Jake's fingers, just for a second. Jake didn't move, didn't push. He let it happen. The horse pulled back almost immediately, but it was enough. Jake smiled. That's it, boy. Avery exhaled. Well, I'll be damned. Jake kept his eyes on the Mustang. Told you he's a fighter. The horse stood there watching him. For the first time, there was trust in his eyes. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and fresh hay. The Mustang stood near the center of the paddock, his ears flicking toward every distant sound. His body no longer pressed against the fence, as if waiting for an escape. Jake watched from a few feet away, hands in his pockets. Every day the horse had gotten a little braver, a little stronger. The fear in his eyes had faded, not completely, but enough for Jake to see the Mustang he was to be. And now it was time for the next step. He took a slow step forward, letting the Mustang see him, hear him. The horse didn't move away this time. Jake reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a piece of apple, letting the scent carry between them. The Mustang's nostrils flared slightly, his dark eyes locked onto the fruit. Then, cautiously, he took a single step forward. Jake didn't speak, didn't move. He let the horse decide. The Mustang hesitated, then took another step. The distance between them shrank until the horse was close enough that Jake could feel the warmth of his breath. And then, with slow, deliberate movement, the Mustang stretched out his neck and took the apple from Jake's hand. Jake exhaled, the smallest smile tugging at his lips. A trust had been formed. Later that day, Jake stood at the paddock fence, watching as Avery approached with a clipboard tucked under her arm. She leaned against the wooden railing, following his gaze toward the Mustang, now moving with more confidence. "He's looking good," she noted. Jake nodded. "Yeah, still has a long way to go, though." Avery smirked. "So do you?" Jake scoffed. "What's that supposed to mean?" She shrugged. "You act like you're keeping your options open, but you already know." Jake didn't answer, because deep down he did. The Mustang wasn't just another rescue. He was staying. The first touch. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake stepped into the paddock once more. The Mustang watched him approach, ears flicking toward him, but he didn't move away. Jake took his time, walking in slow, steady steps. The Mustang's muscles tensed slightly, but did not bolt. Jake stopped just a foot away. The moment stretched long between them. And then, with a deep breath, Jake reached out. His hand hovered for a second before gently resting against the Mustang's neck. The horse flinched at first, his body instinctively pulling away, but then he stayed. His skin twitched under Jake's touch, but he didn't run. Jake let his hand rest there, his fingers lightly brushing the Mustang's scarred skin. "You're safe now, boy," he murmured. "No one's ever going to hurt you again." The Mustang exhaled slowly, his body relaxing just slightly. Jake smiled. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The first light of dawn stretched across the sky, painting the ranch in soft hues of pink and gold. Jake stood by the paddock fence, coffee in hand, watching the Mustang move freely. It had been weeks since he rescued him. Weeks of patience, slow progress, and careful trust-building. And now the Mustang was no longer the broken, starving creature he had found lying in the dirt. He was stronger, braver, whole again. Jake took a sip of his coffee, a satisfied smirk tugging at his lips. "He looks good," Avery said, appearing beside him. Jake nodded. "Yeah, he does." She glanced sideways at him. "So, have you finally decided?" Jake let out a slow breath, setting his coffee mug down on the fence. He knew what she was asking. Was he keeping him, or was he going to let him go? He had wrestled with the decision for days. The Mustang had fought so hard to survive, he deserved to be free. But at the same time, Jake couldn't imagine this place without him anymore. As if sensing their conversation, the Mustang lifted his head, his dark eyes locking onto Jake's from across the paddock. Then, slowly, he walked toward him, not out of fear, not out of hesitation, but out of trust. "Guess he decided for me," Jake murmured. Avery chuckled. "I knew it." Jake extended his hand, palm open. The Mustang pressed his nose against it, standing still. For the first time, there was no tension, no flinch, just quiet understanding. Jake exhaled, running a hand down the horse's neck. "You're home now, boy." The Mustang let out a deep, relaxed breath. For the first time in his life, he finally was. As the golden rays of dawn stretched across the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the Mustang stood tall for the first time in months, his once frail body now strong, his once dull coat gleaming under the morning light. Beside him, the woman who had saved him watched with tears in her eyes, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. The journey had been long and arduous, but together they had defied the odds. He wasn't just a horse anymore. He was a symbol of resilience, a living reminder that even the most broken souls can rise again when someone believes in them. For the woman, this experience had been more than an act of rescue. It was a lesson in healing. By saving the Mustang, she had rediscovered her own strength, shedding layers of doubt and regret that had weighed her down for years. Their bond transcended words, species, and time, proving that some connections are meant to endure without explanation. As the wind carried the scent of wild sage across the land, she whispered softly, "You've taught me what it means to truly live." This story is a powerful reminder that love and respect can bridge even the widest gaps, if we're willing to take the first step. Whether it's rescuing a neglected Mustang or simply showing compassion to those who need it most, these acts of kindness teach us that no one is beyond saving. If this tale touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of hope, resilience, and the incredible bonds between humans and animals. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that even in the darkest times, light can still shine. And let us know in the comments, what lesson did you take away from this Mustang's journey? Thank you for joining us today, and remember, sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in silence.